It's that time of year again, the Warframe Tier List. What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video coming at you with the 2024 Warframe Tier List. This is where people get upset that their favorite Warframe isn't ranked higher. Unfortunately for you, this list isn't for your favorite Warframe. A list where you get to see different rankings of different Warframes and why they have been in the spotlight for way too long and what makes them be in that area compared to other Warframes. Then there are frames who are just fine where they are. But sad to say that there are some frames that desperately need help, and they're not getting it. Let's be honest, some frames are played more than others because their kits are just so comfortable to use, while bringing so much to the table, and you don't need many additions to make them work. My ranking will be different this year, as I will introduce 4 different criterias that will determine the frame's rank: performance, capability, versatility, and adaptability. Performance determines how well they perform, of course, in various mission types, from lower tier all the way to higher tier missions. Versatility is pretty simple and determines how many different ways you can play that Warframe, from weapon synergies all the way to ability nukes, and the different ways you can build the frame to the point where you need at least more than one copy of that Warframe. Vault. Adaptability is where a few frames suffer, but others thrive. With each new update, some frames keep on getting stronger and stronger, as their kit just adapts to the new mission types, game modes, enemy types, mods, weapons, and different types of items that you can use to make their kit even better than it actually is. It's like they didn't need the help, but now they're just better. This is the one thing that will determine the most out of all the Warframes when it comes to the rankings. Reminder, having fun in the game is important, and don't let this ranking stop you. But they are bad frames, and they need help. Just because you like them and use them doesn't make them good. As you can see, here we are in the tier list maker, and I have the different rankings. So let me tell you what each of these rankings mean. S is simple, 2 words, peak performance. A is solid, and with a slight tweak, they can become S tier. B is basic. They're alright. They have a little bit of issues, but they're not bad. C, they have a decent amount of issues, but they're not so bad. They tend to fall off here and there, but still very usable. D, well, they're forgotten, as with each new update, they keep on getting left behind, as better frames, better synergies are introduced, but they still have that one niche that gives them some use, but they definitely need a rework. Trash is where Inaros usually lives, and will remain there until he gets a proper rework and becomes a usable frame. Previously, when I gave the ranks to these Warframes, I only gave the rank based on their kit. However, some of these Warframes will have their rank slightly changed depending on the helmet you use. So for example, if a frame is ranked A tier, but with certain helmets, can actually boost them into S tier. But the ongoing displayed ranking I will showcase is the one with their base kits. So without further ado, let's start this off. And we're gonna go in alphabetical order because it's just easier. Starting off with Ash. He is the original Space Ninja. He's one of the best frames for entry endurance runs, as his kit offers the niche for those types of runs. In regular missions, he's just outperformed by almost a lot of frames. He's more of a weapon specialist that thrives with slash-based weaponry, as his passive boosts the potency of /DOTs, so he gets the first B tier ranking. Atlas, the first Warframe that uses a pseudo-exalted weapon. I'm not sure how long that will last until DE decides to tweak things. He is all about his landslide. All of his other abilities can be caught lacking pretty hard. And he's one of the first frames on this list that kind of sucks in team play, and also hates when there's no enemies on the map. Are his abilities good for anything else? Not really. All of his abilities tie in to making his landslide better. So he gets our first C tier Warframe. Moving on to Banshee. Banshee is such a useful Warframe, but she does lack a lot when it comes to massive versatility. She serves 2 major niches, Silence being a very useful tool to help you farm, focus, and even level up your Warframes and weapons solo, which is so damn good. Silence is also very useful against elite enemy units, as it also disables their special abilities. Her second ability is really great to debuff enemies so they take even more damage from all sources. However, it's only on highlighted areas. The damage multiplier can get really high. Unfortunately, if it doesn't mark a head or any weak point, it doesn't seem as potent. Sonic Boom, not the greatest of abilities, but it's decent as a crowd control tool, and with its augment, it allows you to fully strip enemy armor. However, she's mostly known for her silence, and mostly seen as a leveling Warframe. You slap on Gloom on her fourth ability, and she's pretty good against liches and leveling up your weapons. So she is our second C tier Warframe. Moving on to Baruuk. He's the monk that's all about his fists. He has that one playstyle. Playing him any other way just makes him feel lackluster. If you play without his Serene Storm, he just feels boring. Cause his first ability is quite anti-synergistic with the rest of his kit, even though it helps you synergize with his passive. And he's that one frame that really sucks when you're playing in a group. He wants to have all the enemies to himself. However, if you just want a brain-dead melee Warframe that's pretty good in survival, mostly in survival, but not the best in other mission types, he's the frame for you. So he is our second B-tier Warframe. This Warframe has seen not the greatest of launches, to the point where he became a forgotten Warframe. A lot of people call him a bad Warframe. He's not bad, per se, but he is caught lacking. He has good individual abilities, but bad synergy with these abilities. Putting them together does make it useful in a decent amount of missions, but then they're just frames that will just do it better. And he's one of the Warframes that has one of the worst casting animations that leaves him mostly vulnerable all the time. So not a bad Warframe, but not the greatest either. Our third C tier Warframe. Moving on to Chroma. Let me put this real quick. D tier. Why? He serves one niche: farming credits in Profit Taker. Yet your average player will just go to Index because it's less of a hassle. Because once you get to the point where you can farm Profit Taker pretty easily, you don't need that much credits. At the same time, his damaging buffing tool is counterintuitive. You have to take damage to your health to be able to deal damage. Usually, you would have to sacrifice a weapon to do this safely, so that weapon can deal damage to your health. But if you play this normally, well, you have to play against yourself. And if you're in a team, well, you have to go somewhere where your allies aren't helping you. Moving on to Citrine. DE played it really safe with this Warframe, and they did a really good job at that. She can support her team and herself. She has no issues with energy at all. And she's the only Warframe in the game that can boost your weapon's status chance and status duration, and she can give the entire team damage reduction, and has decent crowd controlling abilities. And she can fit in many different mission types. She's not the main star, but she just fits into the point is, oh, it's so good that we actually have you. So that gives her the first A-tier Warframe. And now Dagath. Her kit is very synergistic. She can boost her own weapon's damage, but while boosting her own damage, it also makes her immortal. She doesn't have the best crowd control, but she has decent crowd control, while also having a built-in primer and a built-in armor strip. But she does have issues. You're going to hear this quite a lot. There's a lot of frames that have issues with animations that slow them down. I know DE loves to make animations shine, but in most cases, nobody's paying attention. They just want to deal damage and move on with their lives. However, she's not a frame that you would see much use of. B-tier Warframe. Ember. She has seen better days. That's all I can say. If you like fire, you like burning things, go for it. Equinox. Very useful with her kit. She has different ways to play her, from offensive to defensive abilities. She can buff allies with bonus strength, make them more resilient, heal them, and also boost their shields. And the best part is she can nuke an entire map until she can't. So she desperately needs armor stripping abilities. So she's that one Warframe where she needs a helmet to feel better. C-tier Warframe. Excalibur, your poster boy. He has two forms, regular Excalibur and Excalibur Umbra. Umbra is supposed to be his better form, the free version of his prime, and with some additional quirks. However, his Umbra version is worse than his regular version, and his prime version, of course, because his passive is anti-synergistic with his kit, removing his own buffs, and can get you killed sometimes because the AI is really stupid. So if you're going to use Excalibur, you're better off just sticking with the regular Excalibur. And if you have Excalibur Prime, well, good on ya. C-tier Warframe. Frost. He has seen so many painful updates, where other frames just end up being better than he is. But with some recent reworks, Frost has risen to being very useful. He is better off with his third and fourth ability. His fourth ability is AoE freezing and it armor strips. The third ability can protect an objective and can protect you while also slowing down enemies and freezing them. And while casting this ability, it can knock back enemies. And that knockback deals true damage. So it has some use. However, his first and second do have issues and do need improvements. C-tier Warframe. Gara, just like Atlas, a pseudo-exalted Warframe, but she does have great damage reduction with her second ability, and pairing up her fourth and her second boosts the damage on her second, so it's able to scale infinitely until you fall off the map or get dispelled. You lose all the built-up damage, and building up all of that damage is so tedious, to the point where you're just like, I don't want to do this. And with the recent additions of incarnate weapons, there have been different ways to build her, but still there are better Warframes that do her job better. C-tier Warframe. Garuda. Very strong, very flexible. She can sustain herself and she can heal allies if she wants to. She gets her own damage multiplier with her passive. Her first ability is okay, but if you pair it up with her other abilities, she can nuke the map. Even without a helmet ability, she is just very useful in many cases, but sometimes can be a bit finicky to use. She's a great all-rounder frame and one you'll be happy to have on your team and even in your arsenal. A-tier Warframe. And here we have Gus. That's exactly how you pronounce it, trust me, I know. Gus is a very, very versatile Warframe. So versatile to the point where you don't even need a helmet on him. You can replace an ability here and there, but in most cases, I found myself just using his pure kit. Very well designed Warframe. All of his abilities feed into one another. He's that Warframe that is for active players, not for people who just like to stand still and point and shoot guns. He always keeps you on the move. Slowing down actually hurts his kit, so he always has to be on the move. Some people hate that, but I find that quite exhilarating and engaging, since it fits into the whole Warframe gameplay loop. Zooming, dashing, and blowing things up. And of course, he is the first S-tier Warframe, and the only Warframe in the game to buff his own casting speed, improving his animations. No other Warframe does that except him. He gets fire rate, attack speed buff, reload speed buff. He's just so damn useful, making weapons smoother to use. And funny enough, moving on to his buddy, Grendel. Grendel was one of the worst Warframes in the game, but thanks to the rework, made him so damn good to use. But at the same time, that rework hurt him because one of his abilities, Nourish, became one of the most used helmet abilities in the entire game, as it just does a lot of things, making other frames better just because of this helmet, to the point where they were like, do we even need to use Grendel anymore? That's the sad part. He's a good Warframe now, but with the reworks, just made his helmets better to use on other Warframes than on the original Warframe himself. And he does suffer in low-level missions because you need to consume enemies to use your abilities. And in low-level missions, consuming enemies deals so much damage to them that you can't even use your abilities sometimes. C-tier Warframe. Gyre is the new Ember. For those who remember Ember back in the days, World on Fire. Press one button, just clear regular star chart. New players hated this apparently, so they had to rework her, because she would just clear the map and not leave any enemies behind. Well, Gyre kinda does the same thing now, with her fourth ability. Kill enemies without any effort, which is seen very good across all Warframes. Low effort gameplay, and that's what she offers. However, this low effort gameplay cannot be done without an augment, because it was the augment that made this possible. She is good but not versatile, and she desperately needs armor strip. Another C-tier Warframe. Harrow. The Warframe that was designed to be a support, but all of his abilities require him to be the main character of the story. He needs to do the killing to support his allies, while the allies are just better at killing than he is. However, he's a really good weapon specialist Warframe, increasing the reload speed, fire rate, and critical chance of his weapons. And he's able to crowd control, replenish his shields, heal allies, and himself of course. Yet his augments are just not that great either, because now the augments allow allies to do what you're supposed to do and are left as the side character, to the point you're asking yourself, why am I even playing this Warframe? This Warframe suffers from being a good design, but horrible in team play. So if you want to enjoy this Warframe to the fullest, he's that solo guy. Does he work in a lot of missions? To a certain extent. Has he gotten better with each update? Yes, you've seen a lot of upgrades, a lot of boosts to his kit. Even helmet abilities from other Warframes made his kit more flexible. B tier Warframe. Hildryn, aka Pillage. Her main ability happens to be a helmet ability. Her first ability is an exalted weapon. It sucks. You're better off using other weapons to deal even more damage. Her main ability, Pillage, strips enemy shields and armor and gives them back to you, while also cleansing you of status effects. That's pretty good, right? However, you need 400 strength to do a full strip and 328 with Gross Projection. Her third ability is useless without the second ability. Her first ability is useless without the second ability. Her fourth ability is useless, period. So yeah, she's the Pillage bot. You could do some meme stuff, replacing her second ability with Condemn, but then that kills the synergy of her third ability. So she desperately revolves around Pillage. And the worst part is, Pillage only works on enemies that have shields and armor. So she's horrible against Infested. So you would have to put an ability that also replenishes shields. And her helmet ability synergizes even better on other Warframes than on herself. D tier Warframe. Hydroid. This is actually shocking because Hydroid was one of the worst Warframes. He had nothing going for him. But suddenly, he got a rework. This rework actually boosted him to being a very versatile Warframe. Can be taken to any missions. He has his own armor strip, he has his own primer, he has his own crowd controlling ability, and he is his own farming Warframe, and has one of the best abilities in the entire game. Tattle Surge is a grouping tool, invulnerability tool, movement tool, status cleansing tool, and status immunity tool. And it also applies to allies within range. Oh yeah, not to mention it also applies the corrosive status effect. And shocking to say that he is an A tier Warframe right now. Moving on to Inaros. Don't need to go any further. Ivara. She's good, she's too slow, suffers in some areas, but she's not that bad either. And if some people saying, oh, but she's a good spy frame, no. Even though she is a stealthy Warframe, she is one of the worst spy frames, because there are others who are just 10 times, 100 times better than she is, and don't require augments. Moving on to Khora. She has a lot going for her in her kits, and her augments just improve her damage and her versatility even more. She already deals a lot of damage. You can actually remove her first ability and still be useful in farming situations. She has access to her own companion, and this companion can put on other mods, so you can spread out your companion loadouts, one to buff your shields and one to buff your damage, while the other one primes, while the other one regenerates your shields. And the fact that Venari is her passive and can be modded, she's the only Warframe that can have permanent vacuum in index, while also having a pretty huge enemy radar. She is a loot frame, a DPS frame, and a speed frame. Yes, people forget her passive that actually increases her movement speed, depending on how much strength she has, as long as she has her pet with her. And the best part is, she can be a group and a solo Warframe. S tier Warframe. Kullervo, the recent addition to melee Warframes and the recent addition to the Warframes that don't have any shields. He's very fast, he's able to distribute his damage, mostly known for nuking an entire group of enemies with a single cast. Can easily build up combo without even using his melee, while that combo building ability grants you Overguard. However, his fourth ability, even though it synergizes with his kit, it slows him down. So that's usually the ability you slap off for something that can buff and enhance your damage. Funny enough, people think that his best ability is his first ability, but no, his third ability allows him to do a lot of damage, because it has 100% damage spread. Yet his first ability is a helmet ability and can be used on any other Warframe to boost their critical chance, on melees that is. But no matter what you do, he is locked into one playstyle. Link, Wrathful Advance. Link, Wrathful Advance. Where if he doesn't have enemies, he just feels lackluster to play and doesn't have much going for him, because his third ability doesn't work well with other players, as he's the only one that needs to do the damage for the distribution to happen. So if you want a very fast and flexible Warframe that deals a decent amount of damage, then he is your Warframe. A tier. And now onto Lavos. Instant D tier. He was designed to be a DPS Warframe to nuke rooms. However, having a strong weapon will out DPS this Warframe any day. He requires so much setup for that one juicy nuke. And then you'll have to go through the entire process again to do that nuke setup yet again. The only good thing about this Warframe is his passive and his third ability, where it drops universal health orbs. But then dispensary exists. And now onto Limbo. Yeah, they're just better frames than he is. And then Loki. Poor Loki. This one Warframe was replaced by a dog. Ever since the companion rework, Loki's kit was replaced by a hound. But what's even sadder is that there's another Warframe upcoming in the list that replaces 3 of his abilities with 1 ability. And of course, his passive is not that great either. A forgotten Warframe, only known for going invisible and disarming enemies. But then you can also do that with other Warframes. I would put him lower, but he's not as bad as Inaros. Mag. Instant A tier. A starter Warframe that is very flexible to use. Boosts your weapon damage, can armor strip, redirect bullets, and a very elusive Warframe. Not only that, she can support her teammates, regenerating their shields and giving over shields. Not to mention, she has her own crowd control abilities and has amazing damage scaling potential. The only downside is she needs weapons, as she is a top tier weapon specialist. Mesa, another A tier Warframe. Perfect for a lot of casual Andes. Press one button, aimbot, kill everything in sight. She's all about raw damage, not the best when it comes to status application. I would say she is one of the most satisfying Warframes to play. She doesn't deal the biggest amount of damage, but she can dish out a lot of damage in quick succession. Mirage. She has seen better days. Eclipse being her main damaging buffing tool, it's just seen better used on other Warframes, but also is one of the most finicky damage buffs to use in the entire game, because it's always dependent on your light surroundings. And now with the recent changes to the Eclipse UI, it shows you what type of damage buff you're getting, and the intensity of that buff. The one on the right, Solar Eclipse, is the damage buff. Lunar Eclipse is the damage reduction tool. So depending on the light intensity, you either get bonus damage or no damage. So moving towards the light, we get the Solar Eclipse buff. And look how it's so inconsistent around different areas. So if you want a stronger buff, you really have to position yourself. But staying in one spot can get you killed. And this is the one thing that actually hurts her. Because let's be honest, we don't really care about the damage reduction buff. We want the damage buff. Always. If there's a way to toggle between these two buffs, this will bump her way higher. Because Eclipse is the strongest weapon damage buff in the game. But with its inconsistency, just makes it annoying to use. Her second ability is okay, but it definitely needs the augment to feel somewhat useful and not that great in Steel Path. Her first ability, very nice. It gives her survivability and bonus damage. Her fourth ability, mostly useful in Fisher missions and Exterminate missions. C tier Warframe. Nekros. Another C tier Warframe. Because Khora just does everything better than Nekros. Because Nekros has horrible animations. When I talk about animations, his fourth ability, so slow to cast and can leave you vulnerable. And when you summon these corpses, they have dumb AI. They will run off, distract enemies, ruin spawns, enemy pathing, so much more. His third ability is what you would mostly use him for. His second ability, the armor stripping tool, that works better on other Warframes than him, so hence the ranking. Nezha. Solid frame, B tier, very tanky, has his own damage vulnerability ability, speeds himself up, cleansing other people of status effects, giving himself damage reduction, and can share that damage reduction with others if you use the augment. Fourth ability, very useful for crowd control. Not a bad Warframe, pretty easy to use, doesn't require much brain power. Perfect for the Warframe community. Nidus. C tier Warframe. I know this is weird to see, but after all these years, Nidus has been slowly seeing a decline. His larva, not the greatest grouping abilities, and you cannot recast it. So if you have a hydration build, you're forced to use the augment just to be able to uncast it. But it deals some toxin explosion, so that's good. He's all about building up stacks, and when you get to a certain point, it's going to be the most annoying thing that you're going to be doing, because all you're doing is building up stacks, grouping enemies, stacks, locking yourself in one spot, unless you replace his fourth ability for something else. And of course, I've done this. I've made different loadouts for Nidus, making him a bit more flexible and mobile to use. But his kit just locks him into this same routine. Nova, A-tier Warframe. Fits into any group comp. But of course, there are trolls that could mess up some synergies and some mission types, because depending on how you mod Nova, you can either be a nuisance or a great help. But at the same time, she offers quite a lot in her kit. Free damage buffing tools, some decent survivability, pretty good movement, and pretty much meta for farming setups, speedrun setups, yes, and even eidolons at some point. Moving on, Nyx, unfortunately, C-tier Warframe. Speedrunning frame for sister liches, but in other scenarios, she's just not that great, but she does do her things very well. She is also another endurance Warframe, for those who like doing endurance. Her second ability is one of the best armor stripping and shield stripping tools. Oberon. Yeah, when is the last time you've seen Oberon? Like, properly. Like think about it. Moving on. Octavia. A-tier Warframe. She can do quite a lot, but she's locked into this annoying playstyle. If she didn't have this annoying playstyle and her kit didn't lock her in a spot, then she'll definitely be S-tier. She's really good for buffing weapons, buffing your allies' survivability, and utility. A very useful Warframe to have on the team. No one will complain if you have an Octavia, but usually people complain when they play Octavia. It's like, why do I have to do this just to be invisible? You know? And now Protea. This is a simple S-tier Warframe. What can I say? Her first ability grants you and allies shields. And the best part is, when you, yourself as Protea, picks up the shields and your shields break, you get a 3-second of a shield gate. Hildryn's passive is a 3.5-second shield gate, and Protea just does it with an ability. Her second ability is able to scale to crazy levels of damage. Dispensary also sustains her when it comes to energy. And of course, the ammo drops is universal ammo. So if you love using arc guns, then yeah, Dispensary does it for you. Her fourth ability can be hit or miss with some players. Some players enjoy it. I myself enjoy it sometimes, but it's not something that I would want to use all the time. And now to Corvex, the recent addition. As soon as he got released, it was the final nail in the coffin to make Oberon even more relevant than he already is. His third ability gives everybody with an affinity radius status immunity. His first and second ability can be hit or miss. His fourth ability is interesting enough, allows you to deal a decent amount of damage, but scales even better when you pair it up with his first and second ability, or even have an armor strip. Without Helminth, he is definitely a C-tier Warframe. With Helminth, he can be better. The cool thing is, he's very tanky. The only Warframe in the game to have the highest armor pool. So if you like that, good on you. If you ever think of the word Giga Chad and you picture it, well, that's Revenant for you. He is the unkillable Warframe. He has his own crown control. He can one-shot enemies. His fourth ability is Due to Water. I don't know why it exists, but you can do some stuff with it, I guess. I wouldn't recommend it. He is that one Warframe that anybody can pick up and feel like they are the Terminator, but better. Our fourth S-tier Warframe. Rhino. Unfortunately, ever since Revenant got released, it made Rhino, well, yeah. His Helminth ability is good, and you can have it on any other Warframe. The rest of his kit is kind of like, you could do better. So if you like Overguard and you like the synergy with Overguard, Rhino does it. Saren. You know how it is. It's Saren. The only Warframe that hasn't been dethroned from S tier since she got released, and keeps on getting stronger with each update. Just think about that. Gloom. Gloom. Gloom? Gloom. Got it. Gloom? Okay, good. Yeah. Level, Helminth, Gloom. All Warframe, Gloom. Move on. Stynax. Well, C-tier Warframe. If he had a Helminth, he'll definitely be higher. His recent augment that gives him and allies Overguard, very good. Unfortunately, he is caught lacking, and would be better if he had an Helminth. Titania, the Queen of Fairies. Oberon's wife. Well, she's definitely better than he is. She can be very fast, pretty good for some speedrunning missions, very great in low-level missions as well. And if you want to kill the new Murmur boss, she's pretty good. She can do a decent amount of work, but she's locked behind a certain playstyle, made even better with Helminth abilities, as her exalted weapons are not AoE. And while her abilities and augments buff her fire rate, she can get to a point where she has too much fire rate, blows her load very quickly, and has to wait for the reload. If she had a bigger magazine or she never needed to reload, that would be pretty decent. Trinity has seen some ups and downs over the years. She is by far the best support Warframe in the entire game. However, you won't see her being used as much. She's definitely a better support than Harrow. She doesn't need to do any killing. She just needs to tag a target and you're good to go. Everybody has energy. She can give healing and damage reduction to anyone within affinity radius. She has some armor strip when you use her augment. Her first ability, not that great. The one thing that she suffers in, and I wish she would be better, is if she had better duration scaling. If she had better duration scaling, she'll definitely be A tier. However, the only thing holding her back is how you play her and her duration scaling. And if her third ability had more tethers. Otherwise, a pretty solid frame. B tier. Valkyr. One thing going for her. Claws. Very strong melee. Why would I use her when I could use someone like Kullervo, Khora, or any other melee buffing warframes? Vauban. C tier. He's good, but there are better frames. Volt just keeps on getting better with each update. His first ability may not be that great. Definitely not something that you would be using anywhere unless it gets the augment. Now he frees up an entire mod slot for you, as it gives the electric elemental damage bonus. It's cool and all that, but not that useful in many cases. His second ability gives you insane movement speed, attack speed, and reload speed. Third ability gives you a final crit damage multiplier, electric damage bonus, and can protect you from damage. And you can pick it up, and now you have free crit damage on all your guns. And of course, some melee projectiles. The fourth ability, it's an okay stun, not the greatest ability in the game, but with the augment you can replenish your shields and allies' shields. However, it suffers from animations being too slow. With him being one of the most meta warframes for boss hunting and boss killing, and for some speed loadouts, that will definitely give him an A tier slot. Moving on to Varuna, the other amazing melee warframe. Funny enough, her and Kullervo are just one of the best melee warframes right now in the game, but Varuna does offer a bit more flexibility, and her abilities do synergize with other teammates. So that's pretty good. And she has 4 unique passives. Of course, her best passive is her second ability passive. It gives her complete status immunity. This complete status immunity is unrivaled. She can fall off the map, she can enter a nullifier bubble, and it's still active. Her third ability passive, amazing with melees and heavy attacks. And since she goes invisible with her first ability, boosts her sprint speed, and if you use the first ability passive, it increases her parkour velocity. And here we have Wisp. Remember that warframe I was talking about that replaces Loki's 3 abilities in 1 ability? Wisp makes Oberon irrelevant with 1 ability. She's a very versatile warframe, and you would love it if you have her on your team. Passive health regen over time, fire rate, attack speed increase. Yes, she's the only warframe that can boost the entire team's fire rate. And you can refresh the ability anytime you want without having her to recast it. She just plops some motes. You're like, oh shoot, I need to refresh something. Thank you very much. I'll see you. I'm gonna go over there, do my thing. All right, I'll see you back in like 60 seconds. Amazing. She can blind Eximus units. Yes, one of the few warframes that can crowd control Eximus units. And an amazing spy warframe. Finally, Wukong. He was very, very, very dominant for quite a long time. Still a decent warframe for a lot of new players, not gonna lie. If any new player was asking for some warframe that they can get right away, Wukong is definitely up there, alongside Wisp, of course, because he is brain dead to use. B tier. And right now, I only ever use him for spy missions for his second ability, because it's so easy to use. Zaku. A tier. Easy to use, does a lot of damage without even trying, can armor strip a large area, and he is the original owner of Zata's Whisper, a very powerful weapon damaging buff. Very potent. Saren, Revenant, yeah, these guys benefit from Zata as well. Another good thing is that his fourth ability gives him some evasion and pauses the duration of his other abilities. So duration can be a flexible stat on his build. Ureli, D tier. If only her second and third ability were better, she would definitely be higher than this. She serves that one niche that can be done with other Warframes. Way better, with more flexibility as well. She was trash tier, but she got a little tweak, a little rework that made her first and fourth ability a bit more useful and tolerable. However, still not a Warframe that I would suggest using. And finally, Zephyr. A tier Warframe. If you like damage with a hint of damage, then Zephyr's pretty good. There's a lot of funny shenanigans that she can do with her fourth ability, and has quite a lot of damage scaling potential. And putting on other Warframe's helmet abilities just can make her a bit more versatile and flexible to play in different mission types. So yes, this is the tier list. As you can see, one Warframe still hasn't moved from that spot, and will remain there indefinitely. Of course, until he gets that rework that he desperately needs. And the tier list this year is pretty different from the last one. There's a lot of Warframes that I would love to put higher, just from personal bias. But if we take a look at the criterias that we're using, they just don't do it. If it was a personal choice, I would definitely put Varuna in S tier, Frost in A tier. I have to put a majority of my bias aside. Of course, even Mag, I would love to put her in S tier. Same with Garuda and all that. If we consider helmets in the builds to increase their potency and make them better, Stynax will definitely be a B tier Warframe because Nourish is so useful. Pillage on Gyre definitely makes her better, makes her more flexible because she can armor strip and sustain herself. And with Nidus replacing his fourth ability makes him a bit more mobile and flexible to use, definitely boosting up his rank higher to a B tier. Same thing with Equinox. You want a fast AoE nuking Warframe, you just put Terrify, clear hordes of enemies in an instant. Corvex moves up to B tier with an armor stripping or a grouping ability. In terms of tankiness, durability, and survivability, Nekros does move up if you do put helmet abilities, like Gloom. Hildryn turns into a decent nuking Warframe if you use Thermosunder or Roar if you want to boost her damage. But otherwise, all the frames deserve to be where they are with the kit that they have going from them. So if any of these Warframes in the lower category are your favorite Warframes, enjoy them. Just because some random guy says they're not good, doesn't mean you have to stop playing them. But hey, if you want to tell us how and why you enjoy the Warframe and what makes them feel good for you, please do leave it down in the comment section. Because let's be real here, Warframe tier lists always leaves behind some funny comments. And also good content. Anyway, folks, that has been it from me. I do hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.